Alright, I'm strong. We're down to 3 teams at Masters Shanghai now. So let's look at the next matchup, G2 versus Heretics. Obviously, unusually for a tournament like this, with the double elim and blah blah blah, these guys are now playing for the 3rd time. Because they played once in Swiss, they played once in playoffs already. G2 won both times, Heretics have brought it back both times against other teams. Match 1, Heretics well beaten overall. I don't think you can say other than this, right? Lotus got to a 10-4 lead. They look a bit weak here in the back half of the half. They could have easily, this could have gone snowballing the other way, to be fair, on Heretics' attack. Okay, win this. Just completely rolled and bind, even with the pistol. That's rough. Completely rolled and split. They were bringing it back here, to be fair, but it was just too much for a deficit, right? That's a best of 3 way easily G2 could have won all 3 maps. And I don't think you can say about the same about Heretics the other way, so okay, yeah, fine. G2 win that easily. In match 2, of course, it's nearly a 2-0 to Heretics. I might go back and review this at some point, but basically just what happens here. 1, because obviously they win this icebox, they go up 11-2 on ascent, they lose. There are a few things here. 1 is just ascent attack is very, very difficult. It has been Heretics' perma for God knows how long at this point. Actually, well, I know how long it's been. It's been a perma for like 16, 17 best of 3 years or something. So, like, since basically just after the start of kickoff. So you're going on your perma. You're playing the harder half. I hate the explanation, oh, the team just choked. Because there are times when it is kind of true, but it's usually your brain's always thinking, okay, well, no, that's just a stupid explanation because surely there's something they could have done here. To be fair, some of the micro stuff you'll see in this, if you go back and watch this game, particularly with Woot, who I think started 18-6 and went to 20-18. It's not that, oh, he choked, blah blah. It's if you watch how he fought, like how he played out stuff when he's sort of waiting in lobbies, he's waiting for executes, how he's pathing executes, what timing he's trying to take, blah blah blah. This is the micro of how he's playing corners. This is what really hurt Heretics this map and kind of made it hard for them to win. It was just because the macro, well, I think the macro was generally fine. G2's like willingness to fight, it wasn't just they were being stopped because G2 were fighting them everywhere. G2 weren't making insane reads, they were playing a fairly standard style. They are good on ascent defense, we know this already, this is a strong map for them. But for why Heretics lost, it was basically, it was inexperience. It was the young guys playing so hesitant when they're swinging angles, and then they just get picked off for free as a result on every mid-round move, every execute. And that's insanely difficult for anyone to fix. Even if Boo or Neil Xenia read that in a moment, it's really hard to fix. So that's why that snowballed like that. So then they lose that, and then Lotus, I think the pressure just gets them to some point, but I mean, Joanna P was then fighting everything, which didn't help them. But yeah, this one's a bit like this is more so just I think G2's defense are really good, really solid on this map, and their attack is not so great. So it's right now 4-2 in maps of G2, 2-0 in a series. But that second series was a lot closer than the scorelines would sort of make you think at the end, right? So the question is this going to be different in a best of 5? Okay, so these are the vetoes of these teams going back basically the entire season, right? The entirety of 2024 up to kickoff, but not including the preseason tournaments. And then this is roughly where I think the priority is going to lie for these teams on each of these maps. Predicting a best of 5 veto is probably even more of a doomed errand overall than doing it for best of 3, right? But you can get an idea of where teams are in terms of relative strength coming forward. So this is kind of, if you want the headline view, this is kind of why. This is the headline view. G2 probably 3-2. Great, go home, have fun. But let's crack on anyway, right? So off the bat, G2 should have 2 bans, unless there's something weird with the format this time that I don't understand. They are banning Sunset no matter what, right? They cannot play the map. Heretics are elite on it, probably the best map. Fine, good start for G2 to be fair. I think on results, obviously, you can make a case that G2 is favoured on 4 maps. Because they are literally ahead in scoreline on 4 maps. They won 3 of them outright, 1-0. Lotus, it's 1-1. But the G2 win was far more convincing than the Heretics win. 13-4 versus 13-9, if I remember correctly, right? So that's good. All good for G2. So I'm going to talk about these maps, but I'm going to talk about them not in order of like preference or anything like that, or how likely they are to come up. This all weighs into an extent. I'm going to talk to them in terms of what I just think is least to most interesting and potentially most impactful for the series overall. So let's go with that. Okay, I'm not going to go like hard side by side, blah blah, all that stuff again for all of these maps. So we'll just take this as it goes, right? So first off, anyway, it's Ascent, least interesting for me. Heretics are in the Cypher comp over the usual Killjoy. Other than that, standard comps. Heretics, I think, on this map are a solid enough team macro-wise. I think they're better than most of the field on Ascent on both sides, honestly. But look, attack is always hard on this map, right? So let's put these guys in roughly positions you'd probably expect them to be. I'm going to use red for G2 here and Heretics in blue throughout. So they're solid enough team macro-wise. I think they're better than most of the field on Ascent, actually. The problem is, and we've seen it on defense already, but attack is always hard on this map, and the problem is kind of they try to play almost too much towards mid. Like they play very hard towards mid. They're playing 2-wave and even 3-wave concepts, so that's basically means that they'll throw util out, they'll get an area, they'll throw util out again, they'll get another area, then get a third area before they execute. It's basically a 3-wave concept. The problem is, for them, this kind of worked well against a lot of teams at this point because people just abandoned mid entirely, particularly since Chamber's no longer a thing. It hasn't been played. This map has not been played too much, I feel like, in a long time. But anyway, look. Problem is G2 are kind of playing more traditionally, so they'll put alarm bot like here. They'll put Icy will take a lot of peaks onto this from like lower mid and places like that. He's not a guy who's like getting himself locked into playing like up here or lobby or whatever like that. That's hard. That means that's hard for this star to play into. The coordination of util for either A takes from here or A takes from here seems fairly poor. I think on defense, you would expect them to get like 7.5 rounds, maybe that's the bar again. They'll do very well on defense. But their only hope for attack, I think, is literally this. You sit Patty down, and you say, look, your job, you are taking over the mid-run calling for attack on this map. If it's terrible, don't worry about. Look, you're responsible for doing this, because from what I know of his personality, what I know of how he's been on past teams, even comms videos, I think one of the reasons I kind of haven't really downgraded Heretics for having standings here is because I think Patty brings a huge amount of value to Heretics, which is something that they were actually missing for a little while with like the Woot Mini Boo thing in pre-season. I think obviously they did extremely well in playoffs, so this maybe is less of a concern now. But Patty brings a lot in terms of comms to his team and a lot in terms of support. And honestly, because he has the double flashes and he has the knife, he's kind of the only one who can really single-handedly break open a very solid, very standard defense here. Now, the reason that players who could theoretically call, because they have the knowledge and they have the ability even to do it in game for short stints, they generally don't do it in Valorant. Because what you find, it's very easy for a secondary caller to get discouraged after like a round or two goes wrong, and then they say, oh, I've got no more ideas, and they just stop calling, right? The amount of times from previous teams, I'm not talking about Vitality here, we stuck to ascent either way, but the amount of times I can think from previous teams, specifically where this has happened on Ascent in particular, because it's a map where it will go wrong for you on stage. Your execute will just not work, and you will have no clue why that happened as the IGL in the game, right? It goes ugly a lot of the time. It's like it's not worked for previous teams, but it can work for us, right? But look, if he's getting cage support, he's getting smoke support. I think this is something where if you have to play Ascent, which I presume they will have to because of how the best of 5 works, you just say, right, Patty, screw it. Like, you don't lack for confidence. Just take over. If this sucks, we don't care. Just give us a chance to win this map. Yeah, just throw your stuff around. That's kind of your option for me as Heretics, right? It's oversimplifying, but it's kind of hard to see what breakthrough they're going to make, particularly when we've seen what their comp is, and their comp is just standard plus Cypher. But yeah, this is obviously favoured towards G2 still. So next up is icebox for me. So that's number 5, I suppose. If you recall, G2 previously had this comp with Harbour, etc., where they were like throwing out, pushing walls here, cross walls here, blah blah blah, a lot of this stuff. That they used a lot in the regular season, worked really well. Didn't work great against Leviathan. 100 Thieves Bandit. T1 destroyed them when it was this tournament. It hasn't come back. They used this. They went Sage instead of Harbour, right? So like the big adjustment for Heretics. Did not work. Still got destroyed. I think I said this during the preview for the G2 PRX matchup specifically, right? My instinct is those Harbour comps are, the problem is they are good, but they have a weakness against teams that use Sova and teams that use Chamber. Just because Chamber, you kind of aren't worried, like it's not really doing anything to you. You can still just get onto that line and hold it there and feel pretty good about it. With the Harbour, or with the Sova rather, the scan ability you have in the drone, let's just cut, you can't really do what you want to do defensively and like cut up the site into segments. The scan ability just kind of ruins your ability to do that. It means that they use it against you, similar to, for example, how Fade kind of turns Viper util against her on split. And so this is the thing. Heretics right now, they run a Sova comp. Just very standard Sova comp. And Benji also does really well. I think we've seen in these sort of scenarios in terms of defending stuff. Again, I think this is fairly just hard favour towards Heretics. I don't see, unless you're going to bring back the Harbour comp and you're just going to hope that you can pull out some amazing stuff and you've got something specific planned, I'm not sure how easy for this is to G2 to put together a winning game plan, essentially. To be fair, you do have the Sage. You could kind of copy what PRX did, where you're walling off in different locations, you're trying to push through a little bit more, you have the Gecko to do that. There might be half a nugget of a game plan there. But there's an argument you can even say here that it makes more sense for G2 as a ban than Breeze. Actually, this would make it fit still, yeah. So this is, the icebox, there's not much to say here. I think this is favoured towards Heretics again. Okay, split next. This is so low down because not because it's uninteresting in the abstract, but because I don't have much more to say about this, right? I talked about this quite a lot already in various videos. But as a refresher, G2 run Fade Breach, Heretics run Sky and Cypher. Both teams have kind of started out looking pretty nice on defense. Again, I think the best defense team in this tournament was probably EDG, and they're gone now. But they were looking good on defense, meh on attack. They've gotten way better at attack now, and I would say this map is going to be attack sided for both teams. Now for G2, very smart with how they use Fade around mid for early pressure, throwing out early Proud, throwing out Eyes, playing off other teams, putting down the Viper bubble. Again, this Viper bubble is, I think, being used against teams as much as it's helping them at this point. Probably need to stop doing it. They have standard Viper wall to come back on. This is defensive wall. They have the standard offensive wall, which is whatever, to come back on A. But yeah, they're going to find plenty of timings to get onto sites. Breach is good at playing here. He kind of keeps teams away from any threat of a B push because like he's either going to get them trapped here or he's going to get a kill here, luckily. Not luckily, but yeah. The main thing I have about G2 is on this map on attack, from what I saw in domestically and kind of hasn't changed too much, doesn't feel like they're a team that can operate like at full speed with this comp. That's their problem, right? This comp should have insane ability for very quick executes, for bursting out and quickly on executing. They don't seem to be able to play it too well. That's a bit of a problem, right? That's not ideal. And this is true on a couple of maps. It's true on a lot of teams on a lot of maps, basically. But this is where I see G2's failing being on split. On the Heretics side, also good with the mid-pressure. They play it differently. The difference is G2 are trying to get in front on the bubble. Heretics are playing behind the bubble and kind of waiting for their opportunity. They have the Sky she can't afford to waste util, but she can obviously force them if they need to get into. Deep spread 1v1, Boo's lurking outside here, Benji's lurking outside here. He's kind of threatening that he's going to come back at some point, right? He doesn't have the tools to do that without dying, but sometimes he can do that. He can die and then they'll just take B sites so cleanly that they win the round off of that, right? I don't think they have a serious threat to like pull back and go back to A most rounds. They also kind of don't care. They have this wall on B, which requires you to play bodies like on site essentially, because Woot can always lurk back, get a timing for himself onto the site as they push heaven, or they can pull back with multiple people and just run into B. They bank off basically getting good and free B plants, teams chasing Benji. I think they have the capacity at least to hard execute onto A, but it's not their strength. And G2, this isn't their default. It's more like elements on B heaven, phase 1 A heaven. I think generally they stack their initiators up double most of the time. But this is the point here. You could see Boo on their defense was like down here. Not happening with G2. G2 are kind of playing heaven. They're kind of playing for like first contact along here, but then they're very willing to just jump down, jump back, play retake. Both attacks work well into the other team's defenses, I think, because both defenses are at their best when your team that's just saying we're going to run at you early, and you therefore give them quite an easy scenario to play around. If you extend the round up over time, have an attack, and you have to have attacking sets, so that can extend the round reliably. They tend to fall apart a little bit because the retakes I don't think are good enough to justify playing that way into second and third wave. Obviously you can do stuff like as the defending team occupy cubbies, that sort of stuff. They do that. Definitely like they do it a lot on attack with their omens, playing up like here, places like that. But I would say overall, yeah, both attacks are good into both defenses. My instinct here is that Heretics' defense has a higher potential because they play more so double anchor. Omen will play over here. The Cypher will play down the site a lot more. Boo's getting more confidence playing around here. And if you have the double anchors, then you could just get sprayed down on 3 people coming into the site when they go late. Right. So that's kind of why I still favour Heretics quite heavily on the split farm, despite the fact they lost 13-8 on it, right? Yeah, they lost in it. I think their way that they approach the map is fundamentally just ahead of G2. So for me, it's still favoured towards them, despite the result. Okay, into the top 3 with Breeze. So this is the thing with this map. This might just be a ban, to be fair. But we're going to assume that it's not for a second. So G2, assuming they have some sort of plan for Breeze, do they leave this open against Heretics and just dare them to basically play it? Because I think there are genuine reasons to question how Heretics will be on this map, because look, like most teams are running a Euro comp. Even with Mini Boo, it wasn't always great. Obviously, he lost game of 5 for finals in domestically with it. And I think the problem here is this is one of the hardest agents to play in terms of the specific map to play in the entire game. Why is that? Because you have to have a completely split mentality. On attack, you're going to have to sacrifice yourself for trades constantly, right? You're going to go like 5-9, 3 first bloods, 4 first deaths. That's like a good scoreline for Euro and attack at some point, right? But on defense, you have to be the opposite. You have to be extremely defensively strong. You have to be essentially just, like you're looking for first kill. You're getting out. You're knowing if I'm taking first death on Euro, I probably am going to lose the round for my team. It is the most polar opposite matchup I can think of in terms of mentality of any agent, right? And obviously I speak from some authority on this because Vitality, for all of our flaws, we were the best Breeze team in Europe this year. Why was that? With respect to Trex being an absolutely insane player, best rusher in the world, I think, safe ability to open up space mid-round, it's Runner. And it's Runner because he was entirely willing to put his body on the line, just not question anything, sacrifice it every single time, still come back solidly on defense. He was the glue that brought us together on this map. I know he has a weird statistical footprint because of that. The guy's a mentality for world champion, you know. As much as I have mixed emotions about the team in general, I didn't quit for no reason. I really hope he gets a shot in split too. But this is the problem. This is difficult for anybody on this map. Mini Boo, one of the few players who could kind of do both ways. Do they have that guy now? That's the big problem they're going to have to deal with. And look, to be fair, this isn't like, and this isn't intended as a knock on anyone, right? It just comes down to, in terms of being able to deal with that massive split mentality and do it well on both sides. Out of this Heretics 5 man, I don't know who does it unless you move Petitek there. And that becomes a really awkward role swap because then you're moving, you're moving Woot around, all this sort of stuff. So it probably would have to be Woot who plays Yoru. And I don't buy it. With the way that he's played attack on a couple of series, obviously he's had an insane tournament. Probably will become, if they win the tournament, he's MVP easily. Even if he loses his tournament, you can argue that he was the best player at the tournament. Insanely good tournament, but his ability to essentially be that guy on attack, it feels a lot like a Suna, where he's obviously not a one trick, right? But at this stage of this team, it's way easy for him to basically play this duelist role, make the space in that way where it's kind of, you're not playing for yourself, but you're not playing to just fully get killed at the same time. It's way easier for him to make that space at this point in the integration of the team on Raze compared to Jets and certainly compared to Yoru. Maybe they have to run a Raze comp on. I don't know. This is kind of the problem for me for Heretics on this map. On G2's side, to be fair, G2 have the Astra. I love the Astra. My recollection from domestic games, the play around how they're playing Astra around tube and doors in this map, not amazing. Particularly on defense, and on both on defense and attack. In fact, they relied super hard on the Cypher versus T1. So they were doing, and on attack they were doing this wall. On defense they might have just been doing the same wall, but they were like relying a lot on, they were double trapping tube, all that sort of stuff. And that allowed him to get some serious roams up both sides, but then it also kept the enemy team out of it. I would say my experience has this sort of style of playing Cypher has never been sustainable deep into a tournament once teams are really focused in on it. I remember when we played Guild in last chance qualifier with Oglu. With Trex and Safe. And Trex was playing Cypher, Trex was doing this, we completely destroyed him. Like, we completely shut him out of the game. And we ultimately, it was a very close map, but we won the map in the end. I mean, I don't even know what his score was. I think his score was still decent, but we stopped him getting that impact that he wanted to, essentially. Like, he was getting exit kills a lot, all this sort of stuff. You know, that's why I mean by Cypher's not particularly sustainable, because the pathings and the roams you're looking for become too predictable. I certainly kind of think G2 have the tools in his comp to make something happen here. I would still say, I mean, it's a weird one. Like in the generic sense, Heretics are favoured. This is left up, but if G2 are leaving it up, I have to assume they're doing it for a reason, so who knows. Now we're getting up to the contentious ones. Lotus next, second, I suppose. So this is the only map we've seen twice from them. Both times stomps, both times going to different sides. Both teams won on defense hard and carried it home. G2 won the pistol, did it better. As I said before, G2 for me have a fundamentally better comp on this map, right? Well, I mean, okay, that's not entirely fair. So, G2 have run the fade. G2 run the fade, I think, better for the most part than Heretics do. I prefer the flexibility at this point that the G2 comp gives you. I understand what Heretics are trying to do. It's interesting. It's a pretty interesting meta call in general. But I would say I prefer G2's comp still here. Like saying it's better fundamental, I don't think that's true. To be honest, I might even be contradicting myself because I think they switched this comp to this tournament and it's looked quite good at the start and it still looked quite good and blah blah blah. But what I will say is I do think G2 play the fade a lot better on both sides of the map, which helps them a lot. But similarly to Split, G2 do have still problems on attack. Their executes are they have the Viper Wall, which is nice for them, but they don't have Gecko and they don't have Clove, which means breaking the line like here, like here, like here, like here. Basically getting over the line, getting into sight, not impossible, but it's a lot more difficult than it would be if they either had a Gecko or a Clove. They also have Icy on duelist. His game isn't really suited to opening stuff up for you, like on these sorts of lines in general. I think that's a limitation they have. Breach on Heretics side, they're running Breach Fade. They're running Cypher. They were great in the playoffs of this comp after switching off the Neon Gecko they had in the regular season. The headline point of this comp, based for Heretics, is on attack. You have the ability to just hard fight A or hard fight C off timing, essentially, because what's going to happen on A in particular is people are going to bombard you. They're going to get most likely someone's going to be running here of an outlaw. I don't know if the code shows that, but here of an outlaw, or with a marshal or whatever. They can get back onto those. They can wait for the initial util to be thrown. They can get back onto the line and they can just fight. If someone's here, they can make them back off. If someone's here, they can fight them. And play the entire round out from there. So that's great. The thing is, obviously breach down, straight line. Right? Fade dogs, if you're taking these on too many corners, they kind of get lost a lot of the time, so you have to assume this has a bit of a straight line effect as well somewhere. But this is the problem. If you're doing this on attack, this does work, but if the enemy team is willing to full fight it, like they're willing to bring 3-4 people out here themselves, okay, it stops working and this becomes disadvantageous to you. If you're chasing down 1, this is great. If you're chasing down 2, this is great. If you're chasing down 4, then you have a problem because that goes to being an unfavourable matchup for you, basically, I think. And obviously that sounds super simplistic because, yeah, obviously 2v4 versus 4v4, but that's not really what I mean, but whatever. Now G2 were willing to do that, pick those fights, particularly around A, and destroy them for it. FPX were willing to take those fights and destroy them for it. Fnatic weren't. They should have beaten Fnatic on this map, to be fair. And I think it was 7-5 on attack overall. Problem is, newsflash, G2 aren't going to be willing to do that again. And because you're running no Viper, you can't just do what teams default to, which is, okay, well, if we lose 1 or we take damage or we get a 1-for-1, we walk back, or we make a contact play late up into A. You can't do that with this team. And you generally have to have Benji's projecting some sort of active presence on the weak side as well, in my opinion. So the question here is whether either of these teams can sort of break this paradigm where they both kind of just suck on attack and they're going to be great on defense. It feels to me like Heretics have the easier route of the two to do so. Why do I say that? Look, both cases you still have the Razor, right? You're not fully out of mobility. I don't believe with these 5, if this comp of 5, because you don't have any pop flashes, unlike the breach comp, unlike KO comp I suppose in the day, you just have you have the Omen flash and you have the dogs and stuff like that. You don't have a pop flash. Because of how sound works, this kind of means this comp is going to be super advantage fighting onto C, which they haven't done too much of as of yet. But if Heretics just go and fight C, and they design execs, they look where util is, they just design execs to skip the util, they focus on Omen and Raze getting into site quickly, basically doubling up, jumping over, because they don't get hit by util, they know where the one enemy guy's going to be, or the phase swinging him out from here, or blah blah blah. And you design slower rounds basically around those executes when the time comes. Open door here, constantly force rotation onto C and B, so even without the wall you can potentially come back. Benji's going to have to be a little bit active on these 1v1 lurks, which it might work because they haven't showed much of it before, and there always becomes a point in Valorant where something is good becomes bad to do because everyone's expecting it, and no one expects it, it becomes good again and nothing else around it has changed. It's just whether they're expecting it, right? That might be the case with these lurks, to be fair, particularly because they don't have the Viper wall, so okay. My point is I can see the seeds of a plan that should get you to 5 to 6 rounds on attack on average. And if you can get there, I think you can win the map in this matchup. That being said, still tilts towards G2 slightly at this point. Even after what happened with G2 and Lotus today. Because, as I have said, Gen.G are the best Lotus defense team in the world. Heretics are good, they're not quite on that level. That best of 3 isn't like a huge knock onto G2 for this matchup in particular. And to finish up with, we have Bind. Oh boy, Bind. Okay, so obviously Heretics floated it today and they won. Huge W for them. Congratulations. I didn't think they'd have the balls to do it, but they did. Worked out in a big way. This makes sense because, like I said in my dissection of 100 Thieves Spines, it wasn't like 100 Thieves Spine was a particularly super special. It was a very, very solid map that they could plug and play into almost any veto against opponents who weren't like hard counter-strutting it. It would usually work. Not that shocking that Heretics won Bind. I think, and this is why I said Heretics were favoured in the series overall. They had like an advantage in veto. Their best map is 100 Thieves' best map. It's not like a reliable thing for 100 Thieves, blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. Of course, another team also beat 100 Thieves' Bind. Did it even harder, actually, because with Heretics, it was overtime. With G2, I think it was a 13-9. That other team, it was G2. G2 also humbled PRX on it. Granted, PRX on a very odd comp where, which they weakened that time by not taking Arena, but a win is a win. Now the thing, if you go back to that game, G2 were great at playing at speed, like full first wave. If you go watch that attack, it's beautiful. They play full speed. They dance through every attempt by PRX to slow them with util. They just walk, like not walking through the util, they're walking in a way where the utils miss them. They're just going through the matrix at some point. They take with fights at PRX when PRX try to push on them, albeit a sufficiently prepared attacking team should have advantage in those fights anyway, but they destroy them. They just sit them down. Like, it's funny, I have a bit of a quantum like superposition thing going on, right? Where I am simultaneously the world's biggest PRX hater, because I called the initial upset by G2, I called them overrated, I don't think they're a true Wave 1 team anymore, etc, etc. But at the same time, I thought they'd beat 100 Thieves. I think they probably do beat 100 Thieves on that day in that lowest match more often than they lose. If we Groundhog Dayed it. Did I? Yeah. Like, I thought ETG would beat them as well, which is interesting. But yeah, my point is that Bind performance wasn't just, oh, PaperX are bad. No. G2 played incredibly well. And they played on a level of attack that we have not seen them before on that map by almost any team that I can think of. And yeah, just, for them in particular, they play super, super well. And I think Heretics will win attack here again, right? So here's the thing. Heretics are good at they're good enough at taking like the early space, stay alive, don't die onto it, blah, blah, blah. This might work out better for them than against 100 Thieves, where they only got 4 rounds initially, right? Because 100 Thieves just waited in the spawn. Heretics struggled against that. They took the early positions, they walked back, they eventually kind of got picked apart after a point. I'm going to concentrate on here. Nice. Good job, me. Yeah, they took the early spots, they kind of waited. 100 Thieves just waited out the round as they kind of do on attack, and were able to punish them on the late run and punish them on the against the retake, all this sort of stuff, right? So with that being said, if G2 play full speed again, maybe that's a problem for Heretics, maybe it's not. Maybe this will actually work extremely well for them. I actually don't really know here. And I would say I'm not confident enough in that to make a judgment that, oh, this will be different and Heretics will actually be good on defense this time, because there's a capability for it, but I don't think there's the evidence for it, right? Now, Heretics themselves probably still win attack. They are good at changing the pace of an attack in general. This has been something they've been good over the year. They've kind of lost their first wave ability a little bit with the roster swaps and that sort of stuff, but they play a very fundamentally solid attack right now. They don't fall for the early traps that G2 like them sort of lay, like a lot of like G2 like to do a lot of crossfires here. They like to do plays on blah 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 blah. So I think this is one of the worst cases where both teams win attack, like it was today. The question is just who wins by more, or who wins OT, I suppose, as well. And whether the stylistic change is going to help Heretics enough, essentially, to give them an edge, and basically give them 6 rounds of defense, right? I think the default is it slightly favours G2. I'm just not sure by how much. And this is one of those maps where I could be completely wrong, could suddenly just swing completely against them, so yeah. So there you have it. A genuinely super interesting best of 5. I think you have to favour G2 overall here, because they're 4-1 in the 5 maps we generally expect to see played. As I said, even if you, like me, you get split to Heretics, that's a 3-2, of course. So I'm gonna say 3-2 G2. The one thing I will say, I can see paths for Heretics to win on every G2 map. I don't know if that's true in the reverse. It seems it will be really hard for G2 to win icebox. For me, I think it's still hard for G2 to win split. Whereas there's a blueprint to Heretics to win lotus. There's a blueprint for Heretics to win bind. Ascent is difficult, just because I don't think you can really contrive that super quickly on attack, but maybe. And that's kind of how I feel about it. G2 will get to the final, and then we'll see in the final. Like again, I'm as much as I've been banging the drum for Gen G, I'm not shocked to see them in the grand finals here. Best of 5 can be different beasts. Let's wait a little bit, yeah. But G2 versus Gen G in a best of 5, Heretics versus Gen G in best of both ways could be banger series. So yeah, this has been a good Masters. This reminds me a lot of Copenhagen in terms of high quality of play, interesting matchups. It's kind of nice to see. I mean, and to be fair, this is the one time I've been a spectator rather than kind of either being I've never been actually involved because of teams getting unlucky, but the one time I've been tuned out basically. So that is what it is. Yeah, right, boy, fun. Yeah, thanks for watching.